which is pretty good numbers for running backs anywhere in the league, let alone your number 2 and number 3 guys. I really feel that we kind of look similar to that team more than we do any other team in the NFL. I mean, any other time in our Sean Payton era. And it goes more to that than just, here's another thing. 2011, your big 2 guys were Darren Sproles and Jimmy Graham. Well, we don't really even use tight end. We do. We have Kobe Fleener, who posted one of the lowest catch percentages of a Saints tight end in a decade.
It was a career high for him, though. He is playing the best of his career.
Well, I'm glad the best of his career is the worst of the Saints with guys like Jeremy Shockey, Ben Watson, Jimmy Graham, etc. But I say that to say we didn't really focus on him like the offense focused on Jimmy Graham. But if you look at who we had back then, you were looking at Devery Henderson, who was no offense to Henderson, a poor man's Brandon Cooks because he didn't have the route running ability that Cooks has. You had Marcus Colston in his prime. Hey, we got this guy named Michael Thomas, the not-so-quiet storm. He seems to be doing pretty good as a rookie. So if you compare those 2 offenses, we really mesh better to that if we're looking into a comparison, and that's why I don't really see Cadet as fitting in today's team, or as John decided to so eloquently put it, he's the Diet Coke of the Saints offense.
Hey, listen, I'm with John when it comes to him being Diet Coke, Thrifty Made, whatever you want to call him. But I will say this, dudes, when it comes down to it, I totally agree with your assessment and your analogy of this year being much like the 2006 Saints. The problem is that they need to be more like the 2009 Saints. I don't even need them to be the 2011 Saints, but I think moving forward, Sean Payton, if he's going to do anything, and it just seems the way that the team is being built. Sean Payton once upon a time had a formula. He had an idea, and it's what we talked about earlier when Sean was on. He had guys that was Sean Payton type of guys. He had a Sean Payton system. And somewhere along the lines, he got away from that. Slowly but surely, I think he's trying to reestablish what it was that made him great. So, for lack of a better term, he's trying to make the Saints great again. And I think in order for him to do that and do it properly, he's trying to reconstruct what he once had in his blueprint that worked. You got guys like Michael Thomas, a.k.a. Dasher Marcus Colston. Willie Snead, we all know who he reminds us of. And as you said, he still has Brandon Cooks, who's a poor man's Devery. A better version of Devery Henderson. Devery would be a poor man's version of Brandon Cooks, but you're still missing some pieces. Zach Strief isn't the same Zach Strief. Jari Evans not the same Jari Evans. So you have to rebuild your O-line. You're definitely going to need that satellite back because it's not the fact that Reggie Bush was just so integral and the Saints just, were able to blow teams away because Reggie Bush was on the field. It was the idea that Reggie Bush was basically, he was a poker tail. If Reggie Bush lined out wide, everybody on the offense knew what was up. Drew Brees was able to read the defense just that much easier because Reggie Bush made the defense give them a tell. They don't have a guy like that right now. And if you remember correctly, the 2009 Saints had Jeremy Shockey, old and washed up, and Dave Thomas, Mr. Concussion himself. So, I just think the Saints are trying to get back to what made them great. Sean Payton is looking to rebuild the 2006/2009 and then potentially maybe the 2011 offense, but he's a few pieces away from doing so. I think that's the way the team is going to go. So when it comes to that satellite back, much more needed than not needed at this point.
Yeah, here's my run of that, and I'll say this because this is Saints fans hate hearing this because this guy went to Alabama. But I use this evidence as this. We say Reggie Bush was able to line up and people followed him and defenses reacted to him. You've got that this year. If Luke Kuechly, who is arguably the best defensive player in the NFL when J.J. Watt's hurting and when he's not hurting, following your running back, that means he's making a presence. That doesn't mean that he's the same explosive threat or the same explosive ability or X factor or whatever you want to call it that Reggie Bush or Darren Sproles were. But if he's able to manipulate the defense like that, then he's that guy for you. And look, you look at Brandon Cooks. Yeah, we can let's not restart and rehash the whole drama that he brought up. But he was played as a decoy. He played that role and did it well against the LA Rams because they did bracket coverage on him all game long. And we said, sure, go ahead, follow that guy and watch what happens. Now, ensuing drama aside, we've got those type of guys. And Saints fans probably aren't going to like what I'm about to say now. I'm just making them mad at me all night long. The offense, barring another guard, which most of us agree they need, the offense really doesn't need to change much. If you're consistently the number one offense, number two scoring offense, things like that, that's not the side of the ball that you need to improve. We got to fix the defense. We've said it for years, and it's fascinating me because I've even caught myself doing it. We start nitpicking the offense because that's what we expect to be great. We got to start putting that same expectation on the defense, whether that be that the defense becomes the turnover machine but still gives up 5 million yards like Greg Williams' defense did, or they become the defense that consistently gets teams off the field on third down. Whichever that we can get, both would help us because we got the offense, guys. I mean, we can nitpick little things here and there. Yeah, there's a better version of running back that we could have over a Mark Ingram. There's, a better O-line that we could build, and I agree that we need to work on that in free agency in the draft. But overall, push come to shove, offense really doesn't need to change. Offense is there. We just kind of got to work on the defense. Now, John's probably going to come in and say everything I said is wrong, and you should listen to him.
Well, I don't totally disagree with you. I mean, there are places we need to add pieces on defense. Could use
let me add this before I let you get to your spill. It's one of those, it's a want, not a need. We can obviously get away with a 400-year-old Jari Evans and Zach Street if we have to. We obviously don't want to, but we could. Whereas on defense, we cannot get away with B.W. Webb and Sterling Moore and guys like that in the secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on defense, we need new starters at every level of the unit. We need another defensive end. We probably need a middle linebacker. We need at least 2 cornerbacks because everybody we have is an unknown quantity. Like you said, we can't march out Sterling Moore and B.W. Webb and expect them to compete against guys like Odell Beckham Jr. and Julio Jones. It's just not that. If that's your strategy, you're going to have a bad time. And so we do need to prioritize things and look at wants versus needs and things that may be a bit of a luxury. So that's why I don't see us investing heavy in a running back like Leonard Fournette, because like you said, he could be a better version of Mark Ingram, but that's a huge waste of resources when you're getting 30 sacks in 16 games. When you're giving up 400 yards passing.
Yeah, and just to throw this, just to support your argument, because I'm not sure if I shared this stat with you, the Saints, while they did get some sacks, only 30% of their sacks came on 3rd and 4th down. And then you compare that to the quote-unquote elite teams, the Denver Broncos, the Carolina Panthers, the Arizona Cardinals. They were getting their sacks on 3rd and 4th down over 50% of the time. So I think that's another issue for the Saints is – and that correlated to that whole 3rd down percentage. You've got to fix that because, yeah, you're putting up some numbers, but if they're not coming during the important time, what does it really matter? Because if you get Matt Ryan, as we saw this past Sunday, on like a 2nd and 18, but then he immediately completes the pass for the 1st down, that sack really didn't do you much good. But if you would have done it on 3rd down, hey, look, you got a punt now.
Yeah, definitely. Not all impactful plays are created equal. So, like you said, a sack on 3rd down, that's worth a lot more than one on 1st or 2nd down. So I don't know if that means we need to look at our 3rd down packages. Maybe we shouldn't be dropping 8-9 guys in coverage on 3rd down whenever we could be sending an extra rusher. These are things that the Saints are probably looking at right now and while they're conducting their postmortem on the season and trying to figure out their off-season strategy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's overall, I think that's where we need to be. I'm glad we're here. There's so much optimism for this season. I know Sean from ESPN talked about it. Brian's talked about it. Both Brian's, in fact. I know Miss Judy feels the same way. Everybody listening tonight basically feels that. But it's one of those things where I'm sure you'll agree. We're just getting kind of tired of the whole 7-9 saying it's going to happen. By the way, welcome back, Brian. Did your phone die on you?
Of course, man. It happens like that sometimes. But I guess the fact of the matter is, I'm just going to say, make it real short and sweet. I don't know if you guys caught the Dennis Allen part of that, man, but I think Dennis Allen did a masterful job this year. Put out the list of a bunch of guys that missed time, and to say this Saints defense wasn't historically bad amazes me. I think Dennis Allen deserves a lot of credit.
I don't remember if it was John or not, but I'm going to say it so that we get the edited version. They really gave DA credit saying that he made chicken salad out of chicken crap. I mean, he really took a defense, specifically the secondary, that was, I mean, there's a reason. And I think Sterling Moore has earned the right to get a contract and become a cornerback depth player next year. But there's a reason guys like Sterling Moore and B.W. Webb were so easy to just pick up and, sign off the street. There's a reason other teams didn't sign them. So for him to take those players and then to take a guy like Jarris Byrd and finally start putting him in the position that he's supposed to be in, then take Kenny Vaccaro, who, suspension aside, was playing as good as his rookie year, in terms of level and performance, take those guys and really start elevating them is what's most impressive to me. And on the defensive line, I mean, we're lacking one defensive lineman, one. And then we've got, in my opinion, a top 10 NFL defensive line. And then the linebackers, well, that's a whole nother story. We need about 15, but that in corner.
Yeah, unfortunately. Is John still with us?
Yeah, he's just being quiet.
Okay, because I did have a question for him. Early in the conversation, we were much less, more or less talking about 2017, and I kind of brought up the point that if for 2017 the Saints have a decision to make, is this a team that can truly contend? And if it's just for a playoff spot, whatever you want to define contend as, it's up to you. But if the answer to that question is an honest yes, in my opinion, it's time for the Saints to push all the chips into the middle of the table, go all in, and try to build a roster around Drew Brees while he still has this, this 1 year extension left. And then he says, according to him, he's going to go year by year, which, I'll get to later about what I think that truly means. But, the idea of it all is if you think the Saints are ready and they're a contender, you push your chips all into the middle of the table if that's an honest yes. And if not, it's a time to just cut back and say, you know what, let's just start building for the future and just, let's have another 7-9, 8-8 season and just live with it. And we'll suffer next year. And of course, guys are going to, heads are going to roll because we're 7-9, 8-8 again. But the next 3 years will be great compared to this just, this hard time we're going through now. Or do you just go straight ahead? Just, chips in the middle of the table, sign who you got to sign, draft who you got to draft, and try to go one last hurrah with Breeze.
Yeah, I really think that's the direction they're gearing up for, and that's what they've been planning for over the last 2 years, is for 2017 to be the year where they just go playing for all the marbles, really. If you look at the way they've drafted, the way they've been real careful in what kinds of people they've been putting in their locker room. Guys who are very team-first minded, guys who have experience being like team captains, being in leadership positions. They really want a squad that holds itself accountable, that doesn't quit in games. And that's what we saw this year. Things didn't go as planned because of injuries. I mean, we lost our whole defensive back depth chart 2 weeks in. But they never gave up in games like we had seen in previous years. They never really gotten blown out. I believe the first game against Atlanta, we lost, 14 points, something like that. Outside of that, we were competitive in every game, despite having a roster that isn't in great shape because of the injuries. So I think that they've had this 3-year plan they're working towards, and that's what we're going to see happen now. They're going into the offseason with about $30 billion in cap space. They've got 6 draft picks. All of them are in the top 12 of each round. So they're in really good position to make some big pickups and really contend next year.
One other follow-up, and maybe you see something I don't when it comes to this, and I want to make sure we get this on before we get out of here tonight. Listening to Drew Brees, with all of the nonsense that's swirling on around Sean Payton, is it just me, or does that 1 year comment, or taking it year by year, does that comment seem to be a little leading to the idea that this may not only be Drew's last year in New Orleans, but it might be Sean Payton's last year, considering that Drew just not even a year ago around this time was saying how, he wants to play until he's 44, 45, and basically saying he wants a longer term contract than, what Mickey Loomis ended up signing him for. Is it just me, or is Drew kind of telling his hand a little bit when it comes to him and Sean Payton?
I think you're on the money there. Sean and Drew are both really connected at the hip. And if Sean is looking, if he's sniffing around, he's looking at other jobs that might be open soon, like the Rams job now. Like, possibly the Colts job next year, then I'm sure Drew is aware of that, and he's keeping that in his mind